Mr. Steinman, we've been talking about inflation for the past 2-3 years. It has
10,000 years.
It has been part of these talks, and inflation
it makes you poor. it eats you up.
It finishes you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, cost of living, inflation. Let's talk about that quickly before we have to say goodbye.
Elsie, there's a very interesting concept in economics. It's called purchase price parity. I must always think very nicely to get the 3 P's in the correct order. Purchase price parity. And what it means is that if you compare an American income in US dollars and you look at the American tourists when they come here, or if you have family there and they send you some money, they send you a relatively small amount in US dollars. Nothing extraordinary. Then when you go to the bank and you exchange that for Namibia dollars, it becomes a thick wad of notes that you can't carry in your pocket. So many notes it is. That is the discrepancy in purchase price parity demonstrated on a very vivid scale. So, because that US dollar income in the United States is not a very big income, it's a fairly normal income. And if you take our income in Namibia dollar or in South African rand, it is so much less if you cross that exchange rate line. But we don't necessarily live a poorer life than the average American. We're very much on the same level, you know. It's a middle class existence, whether it's rural or whether it's urban. For most of the population, we have a semi-decent existence, and we can afford the basics that we need to afford. And I'm not talking destitutely poor or extravagantly rich. I'm talking the ordinary guy. He's married, he's got 2 kids, he's paying off his car, he's got a mortgage on his little place where the family lives, you know, the average guy. So if you allow, and let me get my words correct here, because I don't want to offend anybody. You remember in the first part or the middle part of our conversation, I said we've lost the balance in many aspects. And now we come back to inflation, and we need to look at what it does. Because what it does eventually, it undermines that purchase power parity, that concept. Because if the Namibian economy is healthy, not on its own, but in relation to the big economies like the EU or the United States or even China, it means that we should not see that continuous inflation. Now, if you recall some of our discussions last year, I pointed out that the inflation that we saw was not caused by anything that we did. Not at that point. It was foreign inflation, if I can call it that. It was imported inflation, and the single biggest reason was the rise in energy cost. Energy, I mean crude. And you only need to look at what happened in the world when Russia started making antics and had its eyes on the Ukraine. That was the one thing. And then when Mr. Trump was elected as president, that was the other destabilizing factor. And then sort of lately came in the Gaza war, the conflict in the Middle East, and you can see that the impact on energy prices was actually enormous. Now again, I have to put this in context. You remember in 2008, the Great Recession, when the world nearly came to a standstill. In 2009, we started seeing the effects in Namibia, but it was only in 2010 that we had the opportunity to counter it. Why? How? By borrowing debt. So growing the government's debt. But that was also the very first seeds that we sowed for the inflation with which we were punished a couple of years later. So we can carry on about inflation. There's good inflation, there's bad inflation. Our inflation was imported, it wasn't caused by what we did. What we're looking out for, and this is part of the last part of my discussion last week, is we're looking for a moderation in energy prices. And with energy, I'm not referring to coal or uranium or renewables or any. I'm talking about standard old crude oil, the stuff that 90% of the world runs on. And despite what everybody wants to say, it's going to continue running on crude oil until about maybe 30 or 40 years from now, when I'm long dead and you are old, then only will we see the change. But the important thing is that the expectation for the price of oil is that it will come down slowly, slowly, slowly. It will become a cheaper commodity. And as energy on which we run the economy becomes cheaper, it means that the inflationary pressure will reduce. It will subside. Now, it's not going to happen next week. It's not going to happen in February. But I expect it already in this year. I expect 2026 to be the bottom part of the inflation curve. I see the latest forecast from the Bank of Namibia is 3.3% annual average inflation for this year. It'll be very nice. I personally think we will be there 3.4, 3.5. But you know what? The unexpected thing is, if everything that I expect, or just a little part of it, happens this year, if it becomes reality, then don't be amazed if we come at the beginning next year when you and I had the same conversation, if it is actually below 3%. And then for the first time in many years, we will smile.
We will be able to breathe again. And on that one, we unfortunately have to say goodbye. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Steinman. And thank you so much to our listeners. You can, of course, go to economist.com.na to listen to our previous very interesting and very educative talks. But for now, until we meet again next week.